The Labyrinth event on Escape from Tarkov has been well received by a ton of people who do play Escape from Tarkov, whether that be the PvE mode or PvP, but there's additional reasons as to why you should do this Labyrinth event, as well as some of the reasons why it's also really engaging content, especially if you play PvE. It is a challenging content that, of course, if you've been farming rubles using all of the traditional methods, we've showcased a ton of ways to make money. This is probably the funnest way to make an absolute killing off of all of the items that do spawn in that room. First thing, before we get into the video and showcase what kind of loot and items you can get, as well as some of the extra bits that you can do in the Labyrinth on top of the guide that we did yesterday as to how to complete it. So if you haven't checked that out, go and check it out. But of course, like the video if you do enjoy this one. And of course, subscribe if you want to see some more Escape from Tarkov. But let's jump into the loot. So I've actually ran the Labyrinth a ton of times on my PvE account, just running through. A couple times did get taken out when we were trying some non-meta things like taking in Piranha ammo with the MP153 and trying to use a PPSH leg meta against Tagilla and Killer at the exact same time. Didn't work out too well. We did take out one of them in each of those, but for the most part didn't work out too well. But if you can take out Tagilla, I'd highly recommend using your level 6 penetration round. So anything that does level 6 penetration is going to be super easy to use, and it can go through their helmets. So that is just mag dumping their head is basically what you can do. If you have level 5, just mag dump the chest and you're going to take them out before they take you out most of the time, unless you get caught on reload and that sort of thing, or you get surprised around a corner. But you can hear their heavy breathing, and as soon as you hear that, just back up into a doorway and then just hold the doorway, and they're going to come towards you at some point. Sometimes they'll do a weird little thing where they kind of stand still, they don't even know that you're there, and you can get a easy headshot on them. I managed to do that on Killer as well, so that was quite easy to do. But mainly with regards to the loot, so once you've taken those out, you can make your way around. Now, in each of the different rooms within the Labyrinth, there's essentially like at least one crate in that room, so you'll find either a broken crate or just a standard crate on pallets. And on top of all of those, or inside of the broken crates, you're going to find a ton of rare items. Pretty much every single spawn that is within the Labyrinth is a rare spawn, and they're not just like standard rare spawns where, you know, you're getting like a raven. You do get raven spawns and stuff like that, but they're more high value items, things like graphics cards. I've seen an absolute ton of graphics cards in there, getting 2 in one raid, getting 1 in pretty much every single raid that I've been doing. And of course on PvE, you're not competing with anyone else, any other players, unless you're, you know, grouping up with other people. So when it comes to the loot, once you take out Killer and the scavs are super easy. All you have to do, get to a doorway and then just pre-aim the doorway. They just come sprinting through and you just aim head level and they're just gone. They're super easy to take out, to be honest with you. Yes, they can take you out if you're in an open area and you get caught off guards, but most of the time you can hear them, especially with the new audio changes. So realistically, just take it slow at the beginning and you've got plenty of time to loot afterwards once you've taken out the bosses, as well as, of course, the scavs. So other than that, on the floor, everywhere along the floor, next to any of the boxes, on tarpaulin sheeting, you'll often find a ton of stims. These stims are usually the good ones, so not things like L1s. They're more like SJ6s, mules, XTGs, all of the top tier kind of stims that you'll find lying around. Of course, on the bodies of the scavs as well as the bosses, you'll also find things like XTGs, stims. You'll find the Labyrinth research notes as well on one of the bosses, potentially. It is a potential spawn, otherwise it is actually a guaranteed spawn on the map somewhere. So I will leave some pictures on screen right now, which will just show all of the different 3 locations. So that should really help you guys out with that. And these need to be found for the hypotheses testing quest, where you need 5 of them. So the more you can find, the more you're going to be able to come out with, and yeah, you'll be able to do it much quicker. So I'd highly recommend every single time that you do take out the bosses, search around in the different locations where they do spawn. Alongside that, you'll also find Labyrinth access keycards on potentially the scavs and also the bosses. So another way of getting back in there once you've used them. You've also got the potential to find the high tier ammunition on the bosses, things like PPBS, especially on Killer, and you're getting all kinds of ammunition on Tagilla as well. And of course you can loot up their plates, especially the Killer plates with those high level plates as well. And then also you have a ton of spawns that you can go and check on shelves and various different areas, especially in the main room. You have to be very aware in the main room of the Labyrinth. You'll find that there are quite a few booby traps, and in the weapons testing area you'll often find intel folders. You can find military power filters. So a really consistent way of getting military power filters right now is doing the Labyrinth. So if you haven't done your hideout upgrades right now, this event is insane for you, because I have found 2, maybe even 3, and at a minimum like 1 power filter every single time I've ran in the Labyrinth and managed to take out the bosses. So that's really good. And so yeah, you can do that. Remember as well, you can take the rigs off of the scavs so that you can carry more loot, so you don't even have to go in with the rigs. I know at the moment all of the prices of basically any decent rig have gone through the absolute roof. So not only are you going to get more value, but you're also going to get more slots in your backpack to carry a ton of loot. And by a ton, I mean you will not be able to carry enough like stuff within you, especially if you're taking things like the killer armor and stuff like that. So it just comes down to, do you think you're going to make more money by just not getting the killer armor and just buying it? Or yeah, that's kind of down to your own interpretation. And of course those plates as well, which is probably the biggest thing. And then the other thing is also that there is a marked room, or at least not a traditional marked room, but it is the corpse key. And so the corpse key is essentially a room, or it opens the room for the corpse room. And inside of there, it's essentially a normal marked room. So you'll find things like keycard holders, you can find docs cases in there. I personally have not found any labs access keycards in there, but it's not to say that they won't actually spawn in there. I've just not personally witnessed any. I'm sure in the comments anyone may actually clarify that and say, no, actually I've found some labs access like labs keycards, so like the red, blue, violet, black, etc. in the room. I just haven't found any just of yet, but if we do find that, I will let you guys know in a pinned comment in the description as I go through the event, because it's still ongoing and there's only so many runs I've actually done of it. The other thing is also making sure that you are, checking all of the scavs to take out the other extracts. So you've got Ariadne's Path, which you can take as another extract. Doesn't really make much of a difference, to be honest, in terms of leaving that way. And often you come out with like 3 different keys of the Ariadne's thing if you're looting up all of the scavs that spawn in there, or like the mega scavs, Terminator scavs, whatever you want to call them, in there. And then also you can find a wide variety of slim diaries. You're finding rare exclusive loot that is actually only available in the Labyrinth as well. And I believe that those are like, the figurines. So you can find the figurines in there that are only like exclusive to there. Another thing to note is that people were asking in yesterday's video, is insurance the same? No, insurance essentially, like it isn't a thing. It's like labs. So essentially once you go in there, if you get taken out, all of your gear is lost. So in terms of whether or not we consider whether this is a viable strategy to get money, which I'll talk about how much we made on average every single time that we did run the Labyrinth, but yeah, you do have to take into account occasionally you are going to get taken out. And for a lot of people, if you don't play Tarkov as much as me or a lot of the other streamers, and you haven't had as much experience, or simply you don't have the gear to be able to go in with level 6 plates and having Thors and using the highest tier ammunition, it's going to be harder for you as well. So you're going to get taken out more, and those just random encounters where you're going to get just beamed by one of the bosses or something like that, they would do happen as well. But it's one of those things that you have to take into account. So in terms of how much money we made, probably the biggest thing is that I was making, when I successfully extracted from the raid, because of the rigs as well, some of them selling for nearly 200k for a rig, just you can slot in like 4, maybe 5 rigs into your backpack that all carry loot within them as well, is that I was making around about 4 to 5 million rubles every single time I extracted from the Labyrinth. And that is not taken into account if you get some of the high value items, things like, you know, injector cases, those cases that come out of the corpse room, which is, you know, the marked room. Those are really going to boost it up. And if there are labs keycards within that room as well, you're going to potentially find a ton of money as well. So that is going to be a really, really great way of making pure profit as well, remember, because essentially, unlike labs, you know, you're opening up a lot of the rooms to get the high tier value loot that is in the actual map. This, you don't have to actually spend any money on key cards. So although you might make less money per run than a full labs run where you open every single key card room and come out with a ton of loot, you're actually spending a hell of a lot less, because if you think about it, you're spending 500k on a black opening, you're spending, you know, $1 million on a green opening, on a blue opening you're spending like I don't know, 300k, you're spending a ton of money opening up red and violet and then yellow, all of those probably costing you like 3 million rubles just to open those rooms up. And of course, yes, you're going to make your money back, but of course you're not getting pure profit when you're getting items out of there. This just genuinely has an insane amount of loot, and you know, if you're averaging around about like 80k per slot in your inventory, or maybe slightly less, like 50k, which seems to be the case when I was running, yeah, you just make an absolute ton of money. And so when it comes to the Labyrinth, I think both the challenging aspect of it and the reward for doing such a challenge has just been insane. And I think it really is just ludicrous how much money you can make if you want to. And of course, it is a ton of fun. Like, even if you're going in with a PPSH, it's so much fun to try and run around and take out the bosses and the scavs. And you get an absolute incredible amount of XP as well. I came out with one raid with nearly 60,000 XP. So if you're trying to level up your character, this is an insane way of doing that as well. You know, you spend 10 raids getting 60,000 XP. That is what, 600,000. That's like a level. And trust me, when it comes to the majority of maps, unless you're taking out bosses and multiple of them, like taking out the entire goon squad and then taking out a ton of PMCs and scavs, you're just never going to be able to compete. The only negative with it is you do have to go onto Shoreline to run to the actual room itself and then transit, and then you get into the room, which is a bit of a pain, but it makes that additional challenge for PvP players. For PvE players, it's just basically running there. So I usually pop an SJ6 before I go into the Shoreline raid. If I spawn near the goons, typically, you know, it's just a pain because the goons can aggro you, and they can also insta take you out before you've even loaded into the raid, which has happened. So that's just a pain in the backside, but you do get insurance on Shoreline, so make sure that your gear is insured just for that Shoreline bit, just in case. But then of course, when you go into the Labyrinth area and the Labyrinth, you're not going to have that insurance. So if you do get taken out, you lose everything except from that in your back pocket. So even with that being said, you can still make enough money just by looting up a couple areas before you take on the bosses. But sometimes you don't have that chance to do that before the bosses aggro you. So yeah, it is a really, really fun event. I think everyone should take part in it, try it, get to there, and just try and complete the quest line, get the achievements all done. And yeah, if you have any questions or queries, or maybe you want to watch me do it live, then I will be streaming later on this evening when this video goes live. And of course, I'll be streaming tomorrow. So that's Monday, the 1st, I believe, something like that. It might be the 31st actually, of March. And yeah, you can join me live on stream. You can ask me questions. You can join in. I'll be streaming on both Twitch and YouTube, so you'll be able to see me in either of those. And yeah, hopefully we can have a good time and chill out and relax and ask questions and stuff like that as much as you can in the Labyrinth. But with that being said, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it gave you a little bit more information as to the Labyrinth and what you can actually receive from just running it. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.